The original True Detective by Nikki Pizzeria exploded onto HBO in 2014 with a smart and poignant cop drama, which, after blossoming into an anthology series, promptly ran out of ideas and has been in a creative backslide for the last 10 years. So I'm happy to report that what's really interesting about this latest season is that they turned all the lights off.
Bravo 6, going dark.
If you aren't all caught up, here's how the show shakes out. All 4 seasons of True Detective put a classic archetype into characters that investigate crimes in a specific small-town rural American setting. Dense dialogue and tense relationships between characters is the focus, while the investigation typically plays second fiddle. Season 1 is a 9 out of 10 with haunting atmosphere, standout acting, and a narratively kind of muddy finale. Season 2 is a 4 with too many characters and an overly convoluted plot. Season 3 is okay as fuck, basically a beat-for-beat retread of Season 1, with all the important elements slightly worse than what they used to be, 6 out of 10. So how does Night Country stack up? Well,
sometimes may be good, sometimes may be shit.
Okay, full disclosure, I wrote this in 2 parts. The first after seeing 4 episodes, and then I had to take a break, so I finished the script after I'd finished the season, so if it sounds like I changed my mind, then that'd be why. TDNC takes place in Ennis, Alaska, where the sun stays below the horizon for days or even weeks at a time, kind of like that vampire movie you probably forgot about. Jodie Foster is investigating the mysterious disappearance of several scientists from an isolated research facility. And if that setup reminds you of John Carpenter's The Thing, then gold star for me and you, because there's a cute little Easter egg about it.
I understood that reference.
Jodie Foster is forced to team up with her ex-partner when details of the case align with a murder they worked on some years ago. So this is our central detective dynamic in the show. Season 4 wisely commits to the cops with a complicated history thing, something that I think's been missing its teeth since Season 1. On the other hand, now the story has ghosts in it, which I do not fucking like, but we'll get to that in a bit. So their old case was the murder of a local Inupiat woman, which resulted in the splitting of the detectives' partnership, as well as setting up this divide in the Alaskan town between the lucrative mining operation and the culture of an increasingly marginalized people. This framing does several things for the story. The past investigation gives us a little bit of that True Detective time jump storytelling, even if they don't do much with it. The only jump is done in the same style as the other seasons, where an event is alluded to several times that is supposed to have been impactful for the characters, and they do a flashback later in the season which gives us an understanding of their dynamic and context of their relationship. In Season 1, this is the fight between Marty and Rust. In Season 2, it's Colin Farrell's revenge. In Season 3, it's the boys murdering some innocent-ish guy. In Tiny Dominoes Never Collapse, it's a very similar story, giving us background on why the lead detectives split up in the first place. The framing in Ennis, Alaska also sets up the subplot of industry versus native population. The natives don't like the mining operations, and at time of writing, this isn't fleshed out very well, but we'll get into that later. It also lets the show be set entirely at night, which is super spooky. The investigation is set in motion at the end of the first episode, when the scientists are discovered frozen in the icy tundra, naked and in visible agony. Jodie Foster compiles her limited investigative resources, reaching out to her ex-partner, and they begin digging for clues. And so the mystery unfolds parallel to the revealing of the detectives' relationship to the town and to each other. I won't give much else away of the main plot, and honestly, there's not much to give. Even as late as episode 4, the investigation hasn't progressed far beyond tracking down people that may have knowledge of the research facility. This isn't a bad thing. The focus here is on the characters and their relationships, which is the right call because the other major plot element is ghosts. So fuck it, I guess we'll talk about that now. This season of True Detective is going full supernatural. Characters have visions of people and events they weren't present for. There are several instances of people being possessed and uttering the same spooky phrase. The scientists are discovered by an old woman following a vision of a dead lover. Multiple locals refer to the dead of Ennis as not staying quiet. Jodie Foster keeps seeing a polar bear, which is eerily similar to a stuffed animal from her own tragic backstory. And this really reminded me of Lost, which I think is kind of funny. I really dislike the shift into spooky ghost storyland. Previous seasons of True Detective did contain small elements of the extra real, but those are pretty well contained to characters' PTSD, long-term side effects of drug use, or dreams. The new angle is the opposite approach. This is overtly supernatural, but then leaving wiggle room in the corners of scenes to have reasonable explanations if they choose to use them later on. Spooky shit is not inherently bad. But I wish the writing would commit to a supernatural detective thriller and stop pretending this is supposed to be at all realistic, because this Scooby-Doo setup is not something I find engaging. That's a preference for me, but this being in the True Detective series, I'm probably not alone in hoping for a grounded story with some otherworldly elements, not a ghost story with cops in it. Fortunately, it's the characters here that take up most of our time, and Jodie Foster is excellent as Detective Danvers, also known as the meanest goddamn person ever to breathe oxygen. She's a cruel taskmaster to the people around her, actively hostile to her coworkers, and rampantly self-destructive. She's also motherly, nurturing, and gentle in small moments that give her a surprising depth. The kind of person that you hate watching her, and then are surprised by her genuine kindness when she leaps into action to comfort women and children without hesitation. Yeah, I know it's not exactly a hot take that two-time Oscar winner Jodie Foster is a fucking good actress, but she's really great here. So much of this show is built around characters and performances, it's very worth mentioning. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for her co-star playing Trooper Navarro. Callie Reese is not bad, she's just wooden.
Work together to close this case. That's it for the two of us.
It is.
It's been 6 years. Why are you here?
Because we both know what really happened.
Yikes.
This is one of her first big acting gigs, and for somebody this new, she's doing fine. But even a little stiff line delivery really stands out next to a heavy hitter like Jodie Foster, and the rest of the cast, who are all fantastic. Navarro is written to be the half of the pair with a deep connection to Ennis, a person hardened from a lifetime of policing on top of caring for her mentally ill mother and sister. Navarro's backstory is tied to this place and the Inupiat people. She views them as an extension of her family, and it deeply affects her when one of them is murdered. She can be impulsive, she can be passionate. She's the other side of the coin to Detective Danvers' more detached and methodical attitude. She has a personal relationship with everyone in the town, while Jodie Foster is very much the outsider. It's a great setup for this duo to bounce off each other's personalities and inspire character growth throughout the story. So it's a real shame that her performance just falls a little short. Okay, this is a nitpick, but I'm not sure what the thinking was in letting her keep her facial piercings in for the show. Like, does she look fucking cool? Sure. She doesn't look like a police officer. It's a very strange creative choice. Like, they cast Callie Reese first, and then they wrote her character afterwards without giving a thought to what it would do to audience immersion. There are workarounds you can have to explain why she might look like this, and I don't understand why it wasn't deemed important enough to include a line about why a police officer has a bunch of facial piercings in the fucking Arctic. But whatever, man. If there's gonna be ghosts in the story, fuck it, right? Maybe the piercings are supernatural too. The actual execution of these characters is sadly pretty basic. Those character profiles I'm describing are more like the idea of what the writing is going for than what we actually get in the show's execution. Jodie Foster has a very default tragic backstory, which lets her be an asshole to everyone. It wouldn't normally work, but Foster is making the most of it. Navarro's character is tough as nails, and we know this because she looks all pissed all the time. Like they cast a fucking badass boxer lady, but didn't write a badass boxer lady. Their interactions are pretty lifeless, and the reasons for them working together are extremely thin, but I can see what they're going for, and there is potential there. The town of Ennis is realized pretty well. Being shot mostly inside people's living rooms and kitchens does make the show feel kind of cheap, but it does also communicate a sense of a small, decaying town where everybody knows each other. Characters barge into each other's homes without knocking, they show up at very intimate events without invitation, and everyone knows the details of everyone's personal lives. Previous seasons of True Detective communicate their settings in awkward one-off scenes of detectives interrogating the locals. This is done in a similar way, but with the added benefit of interactions starting on familiar ground, instead of the old, "Hey stranger, tell me about this missing person in your local accent, please." It feels very natural for this setting, and it gives it a unique feel compared to those other seasons. And if it just so happened to be a clever workaround of a budgetary constraint, more power to the creators. I appreciate that so much of the idea of this is about the Inupiat people pushing back on the mining operations suffocating their home, but I do wish that there were more scenes of the Inupiats doing their own thing, having their own culture, or at least talking about it in their own terms to emphasize the impact that the mine has had on them. We don't see the poisoned brownish water until like the third episode, and this is accompanied with one single line about how nobody cared about the murdered Anupia girl because she wasn't white. A statement that, as of episode 4, has gained no traction in the narrative. I like the idea of the storyline, but it needs to be more of the focus because if it stays in the background, it's really not going to feel like it was worth setting this whole story at night in Alaska. And the Inupiats are going to start to feel like a very stock native people's B-plot, which would be pretty lazy. Maybe the end of the show will change my mind, we'll see. I do have some guesses about where this is headed that are probably wrong. My hope for the show is that it continues to deepen the relationships between our leads and not get lost down a rabbit hole of Scooby-Doo bullshit. I hope the case gets resolved in a way that demands this specific setting and this specific people, and that resolution isn't fucking ghosts. So far, this is not as good as Season 3, and not even coming close to the worst parts of Season 1. If it manages to circumvent these supernatural elements that are threatening to overpower this story, I predict going as high as a 5 or 6 if everything goes well, but my hopes are not high. Okay, I watched the rest of it, and it's all bad news. Very little happens to forward the plot in episode 5, so I will just cover the finale. Also, I'm spoiling the shit out of it. Call my lawyer, fucking sue me. In the final episode, Tweedledee and Tweedle never acted before bust into some ice caves that are connected to some other caves underneath the science lab where they find an extra alive scientist. So they tie him up and they torture him, and he tells them the answer to all their mysteries, and these are the answers. The research team at the science lab falsified pollution data for the mining company because the pollution melted the ice and sped up their research. We didn't know until now that pollution stats was a task that fell under the research lab, and the immediate effect of the mine's pollution was poisoning the water supply and not heating up the ice. This is all new information. The local girl found out about this and was stabbed to death by the scientists, which is wildly vicious behavior for a bunch of dudes that definitely have strong opinions about IPAs. The science team then asked the mining company to stage a cover-up, which they did with the help of a crooked cop who gets killed in episode 5, but it's not that important. Meaning basically all the major factions of the town of Ennis are in collusion to poison their own water supply. This is dumb, partly for introducing so many elements in dialogue in the last episode, but mostly because it hinges on dozens of individual people being complicit in both murder and the sabotage of their own drinking water. And if you were wondering, the scientists' research, which would cure all known diseases, is never brought up again after this point.
What?
Yeah, that's a lot of exposition for one scene, but it gets worse. After this, both detectives go on spirit journeys. It's sort of implied that Navarro reconnects with her native ancestry, and a ghost voice tells her that she has a native Inupiat name. Danvers falls through the ice into some freezing water, somehow doesn't die, and then gets a moment of closure because she believes that Navarro can commune with the spirit of Danvers' dead son.
But I'm not done yet!
After this, Navarro and Danvers discover a handprint in the lab that's missing a finger. This leads them to question the janitorial staff, one of whom is missing a finger. The matriarch of the janitors tells them that the janitors had suspicions about the scientists murdering the local girl, somehow. So in a flashback, they show up at the lab with rifles. They round up the scientists and they put them onto the ice where they could have turned around and come back to safety, but were killed by the ghost of the girl they murdered. And after this, we do a flash forward where a recording of the scientist's confession has gotten the mining operations shut down. Danvers is lying to internal affairs to cover for the janitors, and Navarro is implied to have committed suicide and is now a ghost, which is treated as a happy ending.
Yikes, yeah. You can't have a flashback with a flash forward in it.
That's where you come in.
Bad writing.
Okay. Now we're done. The problems just in this final episode are: 1. It's boring as fuck. The last 45 minutes of the show is straight exposition dump of information that should have been slow dripped over the first 5 episodes, but is instead shoveled on us all at once in the finale. Why bother to make this a show if there's only relevant plot in the last hour? You could watch the first episode and the last episode back to back, and you wouldn't miss one important story moment. This reeks of a film script getting stretched into TV format, and the pacing really suffers. 2. Characters have new arcs invented and resolved just in the finale. Navarro is never implied to have been missing a connection to the Inupiat culture. She is shown to have the same mental condition that drove her sister to suicide, an event that is treated as a bad thing. When Navarro is implied to follow her sister in the end, it's framed as a good thing. Maybe they were going for a spiritual presence manifesting as mental illness, but it plays like a delusional person caving into the voices in her head. We learn that Danvers' son died in a car accident. Navarro tells Danvers that the kid is doing fine in the spirit world or whatever, and Danvers seems cool with that, and they never bring it up again. That is the termination of both of their character arcs. Number 3, including a real-life native peoples in this story to give a character superpowers is writing that should be punished under the Geneva Convention. 4, the finale is completely reliant on convenience. Danvers and Navarro happen to find the correct caves by literally falling into them. They happen to find a scientist who'd been hiding in the facility in secret for 2 weeks, even though it was an active crime scene. They happen to find a perfectly preserved handprint from a janitor on a surface that dozens of people used frequently that happens to be missing a finger. Not to mention that they only get this far because Navarro's Inupiat force powers directed them where to go, like she's the only one in the show with the tutorial messages turned on.
Oh, well, isn't that convenient?
And the cherry on top of all this dumb bullshit and sloppy writing, the answer to this mystery turns out to be fucking ghosts. If True Detective was struggling creatively before now, this season is its death rattle. 3 out of 10.